Welcome, welcome, welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable, Veteran Legislative Voices. May is Mental Health and Lupus Awareness Month, and also Asian Heritage Month. We salute all those Asian Americans who have made this country great alongside us in the battlefields and in the trials and tribulations of the country as we made it great. Today is Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Happy Mother's Day to all mothers who are out there. There are women who have given natural birth to children, but also women who step up to the plate every day to make sure that children are safe and provide that motherly touch that is so needed by our children. Our host is Cliff Kelly, the governor of Talk Radio. I am his co-host, Colonel Dr. Damon Arnold. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Tyree Middlebrooks. Saturday topics today, this includes a panelist who has an incredible reputation for helping our veterans. Susan Avila-Smith is a U.S. Army veteran, founder, and executive director of WOW, W-O-W. Today's discussion is the organization WOW updates on Vanessa Guillen's Act and Military Justice Improvement Act. Welcome, welcome, Susan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great, great. So why don't you lead us into this and give us an idea of what's going on with this act now, because we've been talking about this for a few months now about how the legislation is going. And so where are we?
I think we're kind of in a static circle right now. We've been trying for years to get legislation passed and legislation that makes sense. We've been trying to get the chain of command out of the situation of having to deal with rapes in the military. That may be coming true soon. We're not really sure. Unfortunately, there's not that much interest in the legislation, and I believe that most of the people who are working on this really don't understand the whole concept of how military sexual trauma affects the soldiers and people in service. Many of the 6,000 veterans that I've helped have said, I would rather be raped again than have to go through the entire chain of command debacle and being accused of, not telling the truth or having to deal with, situations that are inappropriate instead of getting actual help.
So being blamed as a victim, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's just unconscionable that still goes on. Sometimes I wake up and I put my feet on the ground after getting up in the morning, and I wonder what century am I walking into today?
Yeah,
65.
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on for forever, but we haven't been talking about it until the 70s, pretty much. And people are still treating it as if women don't belong in the military, as if women's contributions aren't much. And they really don't understand it. They think it's a sexual thing rather than a criminal issue. And until they understand that, we're really not going to be making a lot of inroads into this policy changes.
Right. Is Katie Chorbak on the phone too? U.S. Army veteran and founder of WOW?
Katie is not part of that WOW.
Oh, she's not. Oh, okay. So she's not a part of that. Okay, great. Because we were hearing like a second voice. We were wondering if someone else was.
Yeah, that was Diana Danis.
Oh, that's Diana. Okay, Diana Danis, another great person.
Yes, who's been working on this issue for, I believe, since the 70s. Yes. Tried to work through Tailhook and all of that, and just is exhausted because people who have experienced this and are trying to advocate for others within the system, it's exhausting. It is just exhausting having to teach everybody what it is, how it doesn't work properly, and giving situations where it could be better, taking the whole situation out of the direct chain of command, because the commands can do whatever they want. And I think, a rape of either many women or a gang rape of one is not something that you can really deal with and have a mindset change when you send someone out to pick up cigarette butts.
Yes.
In the real world, in the civilian world, people get years of prison.
Right, exactly.
That's not the case in the military. They can do whatever they want, and it's like, oh, do you want to ruin somebody's career? Well, you've just ruined the person who was raped,
their life,
their career,
that's right.
Be it male or female, because people don't understand that males are raped in almost equal numbers. It's a different percentage because there are more men in the military than women, but almost equal in numbers.
Yeah, see, and this is something, and it should be a thing about gender. It should be a thing about humanity, right? About being human. And the thing that really disturbs me about this is that, from what you were saying, it sounds like, the private sector is ahead of where we are in the military sector, whereas the military was always ahead of the private sector in integration and, doing things that were more progressive, from the standpoint of constitutionality and individual rights. And it's just amazing that we're, even circling this problem as though it doesn't exist.
Right. I mean, when I started helping other people with this in 1996, I figured getting veterans benefits was going to be something that was the most concrete and most helpful to them, rather than tackling the whole legislative issue. Because, you've got to have, we have teams of people doing it, and we still have made no progress. They've been doing this pretty steadily since 2012, but people have been working well before that to get things changed. And, with the senators and House of Representatives, they change over and you have to retrain the next ones coming in. The same with commanders and the next one's coming in. And the same with troops, the next one's coming in. It's something that it just rolls over, and it's like, oh, what a surprise. We have a problem with this. Vanessa Guillen is not the first person to be murdered and have this covered up or ignored. I know that Private PFC Lavina Johnson has had 15 autopsies, and they have still decided, the military, the Army has decided it's still suicide. Yeah. Even though it's not possible that she poured gasoline on herself and lit herself on fire after she was dead. There's so many inconsistencies, and they just go, well, that's what it is.
Oh, my goodness. That's horrible. So
it is. And I don't think that people understand how pervasive and how horrible this affects people. The majority of people that I've worked with, I would say maybe 1% can hold down a job. And, it's like, well, combat's worse. Well, it really depends. And it's not about what happened, because it could be something really minor, but if a person can't leave their house for a decade and they have to learn to live like that, that's a lot to do.
That's terrible, yeah.
And, we've got service dogs and we've got this and that, and then we still have to deal with a VA saying, ma'am, what's your husband's last name and last four? It's like, sorry, I'm the service member.
I'm a service member myself, right? Right.
It's like, it's sort of like everywhere you go, it's like, well, you don't really exist or you didn't really contribute, and it's like, where do you start? Where do you start?
Yeah, I think you start with making sure that people realize that women are voting citizens too, and they have a place in the rebuilding of the infrastructure of this country, and have been participating in it in every facet of work, from doctors to nurses to lawyers to legislators to faith-based leaders. I mean, there's not one education. There's not one asset. One asset that we have as a society that women have not been involved in creating or helping to build.
Right, but we have to recognize too that men are victims of this as well.
Yes.
In fact, I've represented 2 survivors of Jeffrey Dahmer. And they were in the military when they were assaulted. And let me tell you, they've had some serious issues to overcome. And it's hard to explain to a civilian. We were at a gathering after watching a film about males being raped in the military, and the hostess kept saying, "Oh, come on and come swimming," and one of them just leaned over to me. It's like, she can't deal with my physical scars. Because he had physical scars all over his body. It was summertime in the Southwest, and he was wearing a turtleneck and long pants.
Oh, right, just to cover up, yeah.
Yeah, because Jeffrey Dahmer had been practicing medicine on him and doing
craziness,
some surgeries that he learned about, and and in fact, I know the nurse who taught him how to do medical autopsies, and she's gone through drug and alcohol rehab and trying to get her life on track because she's feeling guilty about it, and that's not right.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was threatened with being kicked out of the military after reporting so many male sexual assaults, and so she stopped reporting them.
Oh, boy.
But if they had listened, they would have known that they had a serial rapist, and that's the situation in most of these cases. They get away with it once, they know they can get away with it again, and, what's going out for an hour and picking up cigarette butts? That's not really too much of a punishment because it's not on paper, and the civilians only get interested in this as soon as you hear about troops to teachers, because then when a known rapist who has no paperwork following them goes in with their children, then they get concerned.
Yes. So what are the bills right now that people should be looking at, and how can service members, I was talking earlier about, once we get home, you still have an obligation to your battle buddy. We were talking about this earlier about benefits administration and how as a battle buddy, you may have to write a statement where if you saw someone suffer from a TBI, traumatic brain injury, from an IED or RPG, so we have a responsibility as battle buddies here also, right? So when we return from service overseas, if we were in a combat zone or if we were, stateside, doesn't make a difference. As long as we were serving, we still, if we retire, if we're out of the service, even if we're in the service, we still have a responsibility to our battle buddies. And so if men and women are being raped, that is a heinous act, and we should be participating in making sure that the chain of command understands that position too.
Right, and what service members don't understand is on their exit physical, all they have to write is, I experienced military sexual trauma. And that will cover everything. All the care is free from VA, whether they're service-connected or not, because there's a 1992 federal mandate that says anyone who's been raped in the military is entitled to free care. And that's something that Diana Danis had put together. So, the rules and regulations for military sexual trauma, or MST, are different for claims, and they're different for the rules and regulations. They don't go along the same way, and the service officers and the people at the VA don't understand how it works either. And so the veteran is thinking, oh, I have to tell my story in a way that's convincing so that they'll believe me, and that's not true.
Okay.
They have to state, I was sexually assaulted or I was personally assaulted in the military, and these are the things that have affected me. I started taking over-the-counter medication. I started using illegal drugs. I started getting in trouble with the law. I started going to sick call without any particular reason. I started taking leave. I broke up with my husband, fiance, my family, whomever. Mm-hmm. Those are the kinds of things that they need to know. Nobody believes that, but VA believes it so much they created a special form, which is a VA 21-0781A. It lists these 14 markers, and that's what they look at. And so you don't have to say, I was raped by 5 people at this motel outside of Post, blah. It doesn't, that you say you have military sexual trauma, how did it affect you?
Okay, could you give that VA form again, the name of it?
The VA form number 21-0781A.
Okay.
That is considered quote-unquote evidence for your claim. You don't need anything else. If you didn't file a report, you didn't tell anybody, that's okay. This is your evidence. You need 3 things to win your claim. You need a diagnosis of PTSD, anxiety, and or depression, whatever you've been diagnosed with. You need a nexus, which is the link to service, and that can just be their provider looking at them saying, I read Susie's medical file, and it's my opinion, more likely than not, that their PTSD, anxiety, and or depression is a direct result of military sexual trauma and this form. And that's it.
Okay.
And I've won close to 6,000 claims this way. And, sometimes I have to train the people who get paid to adjudicate those claims. But that's what's written in Title 38 on how this works.
Yes.
So you asked about the current bills. So the MJIA, the new version from Gillibrand, is not published yet, so we don't know what's included in that. The same with the Vanessa Guillen Act from Jackie Spear. We don't know what their new versions are, so we're still waiting for those to come out. But those are the main 2 that we're looking at for the current bills.
Well, hopefully we'll get some good information about this because, with this kind of sexual trauma, first of all, most people, you would not wish this on your mom, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your brother, right, or your father. And just to see that this is going forward and people are not paying attention to it is just a travesty to begin with. And
right. I mean, they're still in the mindset that this is sex. And I don't want to hear about sex, with my daughter having sex. This is not sex. This is a crime. Mm-hmm. And, I think military sexual trauma covers everything from exposure to rude posters and jokes all the way up to gang rape and murder.
Yes.
And so we can't say military rape because it's not always rape. It could be sodomy. It could be, there's everything in the middle of that, between that range.
Well,
there's got to be a better term.
Thank you. We're running out of time, but we had to have you back again. Susan Avila-Smith, incredible information you gave us. And Diana Dennis, you rock. You're one of our great stars out there helping.
Yes, She is.
Both
She's
men
wonderful.
and women,
Mm-hmm.
to overcome this issue and to fight and champion for the right cause.